leading the moderate leaders up the hill and down again and leaving them high and dry. Do you not recognise that there is a sense of disillusionment amongst the very people that you asked to go into the forefront of that ideological battle for hearts and minds?
Well, the point that Steve was making actually was specifically on the public inquiry, and we can come to that and I can explain the reasons why I'm fully opposed to such a thing taking place. I don't accept that we are not engaging with the Muslim community, and I honestly, I do say this to you. It is, I know everyone always wants to blame the government for absolutely everything that is happening, but, and I'm not saying we don't have a huge responsibility which we're trying to discharge. It is, as I say, having a dialogue with the Muslim community and trying to make sure that we engage with the reasons for this extremism. But I just say to you, my view in the end is, you cannot defeat this extremism through whatever a government does.
Tony Blair under pressure this morning. Well, after the disappointment over the task force, feelings in the mainstream Muslim community are running high. I spent some time in Leicester and spoke to members of the group, and as I found out, many people feel the government's lack of response to their months of hard work is part of a wider pattern of neglect. They were British bombers from British Muslim communities. When that sunk in, the search was for answers. How could it have happened, and how to stop it happening again? The security forces knew they couldn't do it alone.
It's much more than just a law enforcement legal service response. Because if people don't feel content with themselves, they become very, very anxious. People become anxious, they become frightened, people become frightened, they become defensive. The gathering of intelligence from communities that trust their police, trust them to actually do something with the information that they're being provided with, is absolutely fundamental.
So a so-called task force was created. Prominent Muslims from around the country were invited into Downing Street. Tony Blair said there was a strong desire to combat extremism head-on. But a year later, how much attention has been paid to the group's ideas? Out of the 7 different groups who worked on different subjects, only 3 were allowed to put suggestions to the Home Office, and only 1 idea each.
People have said to me, why bother engaging with government when you know that they won't do what you're saying is good. Your recommendations have not been taken seriously or have not been regarded for implementation. Waste of time. They're just using you. We have to engage despite disappointment after disappointment. The best thing we can do is to keep engaging with government. Someday they will listen.
Riyadh says government and Muslims must trust each other, but this experience hasn't made that easier.
Getting so many good individuals together, asking them their opinion, getting them to come up, bringing forward their ideas, representing their community, and then for a lot of it just to almost get washed away is very frustrating, and it almost just crumbles this trust again.
Should we be surprised that the task force have found it so difficult to get their voices heard? Well, maybe not. In 2004, a government report said that extremist organisations were targeting young British Muslims and made more than 30 recommendations on how to tackle the problem. But what happened? MPs weren't even shown the report. And in 2001, the council inquiry after the riots in the northern towns warned of the risks of polarisation between the white and Asian communities. But its author told us that 5 years on, some of his ideas have yet to be followed through. So why the slow pace? The initial flurry of effort after the 7th of July was unprecedented. Ministers going out from Whitehall to meet Muslims around the country. So a model for dialogue exists, but why the lack of concrete progress?
One of the reasons I think is where this particular part is placed in government. Should it be in the Home Office, should it be in a department community, level government? It should be a mainstream issue, I believe, not ghettoised in part of the Home Office. That's the first point. The second point, I think, is the public are under a belief, and some of it is borne out and justified, that there may be a lack of will in senior levels of government.
No doubt the task force was welcome, a way to try and stop people being sucked into extremism. Keep us all safe. But for government to raise expectations expectations and then disappoint bears its own risks too. Well, joining us now is Chief Superintendent Ali Jazai of the Metropolitan Police, who's also the spokesman for the National Black Police Association and a Muslim Welcome Programme. I'd like to pick up on some of the points that Sadiq Khan made in Laura's film first, which was broadly, he says that Muslims are being ignored. Do you agree with that?
I think it's not a question of being ignored. I think the question, what Sadiq is trying to say, is it's all well and good setting up a task force. But if you don't have a champion, certainly at high political level, then very little is done. And I think the best analogy to use is the Lawrence inquiry. You know, it was a big shake-up for the police service. As a result, Jack Straw set up a steering group. He personally chaired that steering group, and he's made sure that all stakeholders, which included members of the community, came to that meeting, and when they said they were going to deliver something, he called them to account. It's only when you do it in that manner, then those objectives can be achieved.
And that hasn't been achieved this time. That manner hasn't happened this time, and that could be a problem.
I have not seen a champion, or maybe a senior politician,